Hi, I'm Nicola from the Child Behaviour Network. I'm so pleased that you've joined us today to have a little think about how we can prevent some of the difficult behaviour that we are inevitably going to see from our children just by very nature of the fact that they're children. We sometimes are challenged by their behaviour, and we know that this is exacerbated if your child has additional needs. So, we're going to have a little think about what things we can put in place to try and prevent these behaviours before they even happen. I'm going to start with a couple of analogies. So, if you think of your child as being like a Coke can, and sometimes as they go through their day, their Coke can will be shaken up by some bad things that are happening or some difficult things that have happened, some challenges. So, for example, this might look like they start off their day and the clothes they want to wear are dirty. They're in the wash, so they can't wear them. So they have to choose a different outfit. And that shakes up their coat can a little bit. And then you go to the dentist and they don't like the dentist. So that shakes up their coat can. You then come home and it's lunchtime. What you've made for lunch today, they're not really a fan of. So that's shaken up their coat can a bit more. You then have a play date in the afternoon. They have fun, they have a good time, but they do find it quite overwhelming. Perhaps your child struggles with sharing, so that makes play dates quite difficult. They struggle to regulate themselves. They've had a good time, but it's feeling a bit much, but they seem okay. Play date finishes and you think, okay, this is all right. They then sit down and try and do some colouring with their brother, and you think, okay, everything seems calm, but all good. And then their brother takes the colour that they want, and your child just explodes. The lid of the Coke can is cracked open over something seemingly really small. Their brother took their pen. Okay, it's a bit annoying, but it's not a big problem. And your child has exploded. It's nothing to do with the pen. It's all about the other small things that have happened throughout the day that have built up. Which is why sometimes in those situations, you firstly can't work out what has happened that's causing this reaction. And you secondly can't work out why, when you then give them the pen they want, they're still not happy. It's because it's not about the pen. It's about all of the things that have happened throughout the day that have just caused them to feel too overwhelmed. So the principles we're going to look at later are going to help avoid that Coke can from being shaken up so much throughout the day. The other analogy that I think is helpful to have sort of in the back of your mind is that if your child is like a seesaw, there is only so much they can handle. So if you know that there are more challenging things going on in their life, which are the red boxes, you either need to help to take some of them off, or we need to balance it with more green boxes, which are the good things in their lives, the things that help them to feel safe, secure, happy. So the red boxes might be it's the end of term, they're feeling a bit nervous, they're not sure, about their teacher next year, things like that. They're red boxes. Maybe there's some sensory difficulties, maybe it's they don't like their school uniform, so that that's another box that gets put on them when they're at school. Maybe it's that you're going on holiday and actually they're anxious about going on holiday. Maybe that's a red box. It could be any number of different things, big things, small things. That's why all the boxes are different sizes. So we need to make sure that their seesaw is more balanced. In this picture, this child's not having a good day. They're not able to make good choices at the moment because there's just too much weighing them down on their red side. So on the green side, we might have things like having their favourite food for dinner because it means that they've definitely eaten something that they like. It might be giving them more consistency, more predictability, just helping them to feel really safe and secure. It might be that you spend a little bit more time with them than you would normally. That's quite a big box. That can really help to make a child feel better if they've got these underlying anxieties or difficulties. If you can invest a little bit more time, I know it's not always easy, but that is a green box that can help to balance things out. So I just think it's helpful to bear in mind this might be why sometimes it seems your child copes one day and not a different day. Have a think about what in their life might be green boxes and red boxes. We're now going to have a little think about some sort of guiding principles that we can put in place that are for the benefit of everyone. These aren't sort of really specific targeted things, really specialist. These are just a way of living that will make life easier and more beneficial for everyone. So we're going to have a calm and organised environment. We're going to think about our language that we use when we're speaking to children. We're going to praise them a lot, and we're going to make sure that we're connecting with them. So firstly, a calm and organised environment. So what this might look like for a child is providing 5 and 2 minute warnings before you change activity, particularly if it's something that they really like doing. So if you're at a play date and they're having a great time, or if you're at the park, it's really helpful to give them 5 minutes warning before it's time to leave. I would also then help the child to work out what they need to do with their last 5 minutes. So I might say, in 5 minutes, we're going to be going home. Is there anything else at the park you would like to do in your last 5 minutes? You've not been on the slide yet and you've not done the swings. So if you want to do either of those things before we go home, you've got 5 minutes to do it. And then that preempts the conversation when you say it's time to leave. Hopefully you won't have the, but I just wanted to. And if you do, you can say, well, I said 5 minutes, sweetheart, and we talked about that 5 minutes ago. So we've had this conversation. You've had the conversation ahead of time and you've been able to get out in front of it. We're also going to think about how your child's belongings are organised. And I know this can be hard, I think, especially in the holidays, because you have various different things happening on various different days. I always remember when I was nannying, it just felt like all I did was pack and unpack bags because there were various different play dates and swimming and all these different things. And sometimes it can be really hard to stay on top of it, but it makes such a difference if you can stay organised with it so that the children know where their things are. For some children, it's so frustrating when they know what they would like and they can't find it. So it could be their water bottle or their shoes or their jumper or things like that. If the child goes to get it and can't find it, you're just shaking up their Coke can. You can see the frustration building. And even once they found the item, that frustration stays. That will then be there. So let's just try and prevent that. Let's try and keep everything really organized and really simple so that people can just grab what they need as soon as they need it. We can also organize our stuff in such a way that the children can access it themselves, which in the short term might mean that you have to take a little bit of time to teach them sort of how to get things out and all that sort of thing. But in the long term, will make your life easier, hopefully, because they'll be able to access things themselves. But also, it will make your child happier. Children like to do things for themselves, they take pride in it. And it prevents any sort of power struggle. You don't have to have that conversation of, are you wearing this jumper or this jumper or this jumper? Because you can just ask them to go and get a jumper because they can reach it themselves. So small things like that hopefully will just sort of ease the day. We also have to be so careful with the language that we use when we speak to children. Language is such a powerful tool, and it can be the best or the worst depending on how it's used, can't it? So I think if we have a think about how we speak to our children, it can really make a difference to how they respond to what we've said. So, for example, are you giving specific instructions? Does the child really understand what it is that's being asked of them? So, for example, saying to a child, please, could you get ready to go out? is quite a complicated instruction. That requires quite a high level of thinking, and your child might not be there yet. So they might need you to say, please, could you go and put your shoes on? And then once they've got their shoes on, please, could you go to the toilet? And then your child might be halfway between. You might be able to say to your child, please, could you put your shoes on and go to the toilet? But it's still a much more specific instruction than just, could you get ready? Because then your child might turn around and say, I'm ready. And in your head, you're thinking, well, you're not ready because you've not got a jumper on. But if we don't say you need to put a jumper on, then they don't know that necessarily that they need to put a jumper on. So giving specific instructions helps for the child to actually do what it is you would like them to do. And also just prevents, again, we're trying to prevent here, it prevents that potential conflict of them thinking they're ready, you then have to tell them they're not, and it then gets a little bit tense. Also think about reducing the language you use, especially if a child is having a more difficult day or just a more difficult moment. In that moment, it's really helpful if you can say less. Sometimes it's really nice to talk to children like they're adults, but when they're having a difficult time, they need you to bring it right back down. Really reduce the amount of information that you are giving to them. So, for example, if a child is really upset because you said they can't have their iPad time now because we're going to do dinner in a minute and they can have their iPad time later, even how I just said it to you just then was quite a lot of words and I spoke quite quickly. A child wouldn't be able to process that probably, especially if they're upset. So if they're upset about not having the iPad, we need to bring it right back down to, first we're going to have dinner and then you can have your iPad time. You know your child, it might even be better to be even simpler. First dinner, then iPad. 4 words is sometimes all your child actually needs to understand exactly what it is that's happening. Because if you use too many words, they're confused and all they hear is, I can't have the iPad. You can really reduce it down to first dinner, then iPad. They know what the plan is. They understand what you're saying. And similarly, let's help to make it really easy for them by allowing take-up time. Sometimes it's hard to realize how much time a child needs to process the information we've given to them. So continuing with the iPad example, we might say, first we're having dinner, then you can have your iPad time. They might just need a minute to sit with that information. So it's probably not helpful to immediately follow that up with, come and sit at the table, because that might just be too much information for them. They might just need a minute to process, okay, so I'm having dinner, but then I will get the iPad time. Just give them a little bit of space, and then you can say, please, could you come and sit at the table? Or similarly with the specific instructions, after you've given a specific instruction, give them time to have a think about it, work out what they need to do, and execute it. That can sometimes take a surprising amount of time, and it can feel like the child's ignoring us, but they're not, they're actually just thinking. So that's something to look out for. Moving on to thinking about praise. So we think you should praise all the time. I think sometimes people are concerned now about overpraising children, but I think if praise is done right, then you can't overpraise. So we're going to make sure our praise is genuine. What we're not going to do is praise everything the child does, even if it's not actually good. So make sure your praise is genuine, and your child can tell if your praise is genuine. They know and they pick up and they sense it straight away. So make sure your praise is genuine. Make sure your praise is specific and labelled. It's great to say to children, like, well done today, you've been a really good girl. That's lovely, keep doing that. But also excuse me, also try and find a really specific thing that you have observed that they've done that you really appreciated, and share that with them. So it might be you've been on a play date, and on the way home from the play date, you can say, I had such a nice play date. Like, thank you so much. That was really fun. Like, thank you for being so well behaved and polite. And then you can say, I noticed when you were playing the board game with Sam that he wasn't really playing fairly, was he? And that was a bit frustrating for you. I noticed that you're getting a bit cross there. But I'm really proud of you because you weren't rude to him and you played the game really nicely and you made sure that everyone had a turn. I really appreciated that. That was really nice. The child knows exactly what they did. And when you give that sort of specific praise, their faces just light up because they think, oh, she really saw me. She really recognized what I did. I matter to her. She cares what I do. It just makes them feel so loved and valued. So that really specific praise is great for your relationship with them, but also great so that they know what behavior you want to see more of, and then they can repeat the behaviors more in the future. We can also praise partial compliance. So if a child does half of what you've asked them to do, let's praise them, especially if they're having a difficult day. So if they're having a difficult day and maybe they have got cross with their Lego and so they've broken the Lego all over the floor, you might say to them, okay, we're going to put the Lego away. I think maybe you need to go to your bedroom and have some time to calm down. They storm off, get up to their bedroom and calm down. They didn't tidy up the Lego. What I would then do is go up to their room, give them space if they want space to calm down, go up to the room, acknowledge, thank you so much for coming up to your room and giving everyone some space to calm down. I really appreciate that you came upstairs when I asked you to. Depending on the day the child's had, I would then make a judgment call as to whether I was going to say, do you remember the other thing I asked you to do? Or would you like me to help you tidy up from Lego? Let's go do it together. Or I might just not pick that battle today. I might decide their day's been too hard. We don't need to have the Lego conversation. So well done for coming up to your room and calming down. I really appreciate that. And that would be praising partial compliance. And lastly, connection. So when children experience emotions, they need us to connect with them and acknowledge that emotion. So children don't always know what they're feeling. So they need us to help them to work it out. So sometimes, especially if they're having a really big emotion, they need us to name it so that we can tame it. So this might be if they lose at a board game, let's say. So they've lost at a board game. You can see they're really angry. You can see they're fuming. Acknowledge it. I can see that you are really angry. I can tell that you're really unhappy that you've lost the board game. That's completely understandable. No one likes to lose. So it gives you a really horrible feeling inside, doesn't it? It doesn't feel great. And I can see that you're so angry. Are you feeling hot? Are you feeling cross? So in naming it, we're saying, I see that that's what you're feeling. This is what it's called. We're empathizing, we're validating their emotions. It's completely fine to feel angry. Everyone feels angry sometimes. But what we can then do is set limits if needed. So this might look like saying, I know that you're really angry, and that's okay. It's okay to feel angry. It's not okay to shout at me, and it's not okay to throw the board pieces. So we're accepting and loving the child always. We're not accepting the behavior. But before we put that correction in, we've connected with the child and the emotion. So we connect before we correct. So I see you, I see the emotion you're feeling, I get it, that's really hard. Then we set the limits. Then we can move into problem solving. Would you like to play a different game? I wonder whether you're just feeling a bit frustrated because you found that game really difficult. Would you like to do something different next time? Shall we play on a team? You can come up with, depending on what the solution is. Once you've moved through feeling the emotion and working out how to appropriately express the emotion, you can then problem solve. So they are our sort of guiding principles. That's the advice we would give for preventing some of the more difficult behaviours that we don't want to see. So we're going to have a calm and organised environment. Think about the language you're using. Think about reduced language, specific instructions. Praise, we're going to praise all of the time, but it's going to be genuine and it's going to be specific. And we're going to connect with our children. We're going to make sure we name it to tame it if a child is having a really big feeling. And we're going to always connect before we correct the behaviour. So I hope that you found this really helpful. If you would like more information or you think this is a great start, what next? We do have a more in-depth workshop coming up soon. So keep an eye on our website or make sure you're subscribed on our website and you will get sent the workshop when it comes out. Or you can email me, my email address is on there. We also provide coaching. So if you think this is great, but I'd love to chat about it more and talk about my child and how this would work for my family, drop me an email or contact me through the website. More than happy to do that. Also very happy to come and do something we call strategies in action, which is where I would come to your home and help you to implement these things. I can model it for you. You can model it for me if you would like, and sort of we can have a conversation about like how this is implemented in your household for your family, so that you get the most out of these strategies. But thank you so much for joining. It's been great to have you and have a fantastic summer. And we are here if you need anything. Thanks so much.